Just want to jump on and talk about some of the items that I talked about or kind of mentioned yesterday on my story on Instagram about being at the UMB uh, mid-year summit or mid-year meeting about the economy. And some of the things that they did talk about was, how tariffs are going to impact us and how things like that are going to impact us. Um, but they also are really big people, and they're really well known because they do a lot within real estate. So they have a huge portfolio of multi-billion dollar company and bank, and they're able to do some of these bigger projects because they have the assets that are available to them. And so that's one reason why I'm very fortunate that I was able to attend this, is because they do a lot of real estate work. So without any further delay or any kind of hindrance, I want to jump in and talk a little bit about what they were discussing when it comes to real estate. So right now we're seeing kind of like this up and down, this kind of roller coaster effect, if you will. And I don't disagree. I think it's one of the craziest times that we've been in this market, and one of the craziest times that we've seen in a long time. But I think overall that we're still in a really good position. Now, I know that the world stage and political economics and things like that are very different than what we've seen in the past. But overall, I do think that with what's happening now and what's going on right now, especially within the Denver market, because Denver is one of these safe havens, I guess you can say, for real estate purposes, for those that are looking to park money, for those that are looking to say, hey, listen, I know this economy is not the greatest, but I also love being outside. I love being close to the mountains. Let's buy a place in Denver, or let's buy a place in Colorado. And I think it's smart and it's great. Now, one of the things before I go any further, one of the things that they did touch on, and I have to refer back to my notes because it was something very specific. Um, and what that is it's transactional friction. And what they're meaning by that, if you don't necessarily understand what transactional friction is, it's in terms of businesses. It's how well can a business do in terms of setting up and being successful in that specific area. We've all seen this exodus of New York and California and multiple other states for businesses, whether it's tech business, whether it's medical business, whatever it may be. We've seen a big change in that. And that's part of the transactional friction that I'm talking about. And so when we see this, it goes into the laws and everything else that different states have. So when you're saying, hey, we need to have, better businesses here, we need to have tech here, we need to have tech in this city and or medical in Denver, and we need to have, manufacturing come back to Denver. It also comes down to this friction that I'm talking about. And right now, it's very difficult in numerous states because there's so many laws, or there's so many uh, issues when it comes to actually making sure that business can thrive here. And so that's why we don't necessarily see a bunch of businesses flocking to Denver and flocking to some of these other big places that we've seen, is because there's some of that friction there. So once there's some different changes in the laws and some of the different changes within the economics of bringing a business to a different state, then we'll start seeing a lot more people. So we did see a big, huge fluctuation, several years ago, a few years ago, when DTC really started exploding, when we started seeing a little bit more tech companies come in and some medical companies come in. But now we really haven't seen a huge influx of that happening again. And I wanted to talk about this because this also feeds into real estate itself, of people buying, people selling, people looking to trade up, down, sideways, whatever it is. And yes, we do have Californians coming. We do have Texans coming. We do have New Yorkers and people from Nashville and Florida and everywhere else. But at the same time, we don't see people flocking here as much as we used to. So, what that means is that we're not seeing as many homes being sold or purchased as we had in the past. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because right now we're not also seeing interest rates move. If anything, we've seen them shift a little bit upwards, but right now we're just still stagnant right around that 6.5, 6.75 area for your 30 year. So, what that also means is that people are starting to look at, if they can, the 15-year note, because that's closer down to the six or even high fives at this point. But talking about real estate and talking about interest rates and how things are really shaping up right now, I have three homes on the market. I've had a couple showings at places, but and this is also coming from other coworkers and friends and people that are in the industry on the residential side of real estate. We're not in a slump right now. I'm not sure what the news is talking about. I don't listen to the news. I especially do not listen to local news when they're talking about real estate because I don't think that they're really giving us the most accurate information in regards to market. And yes, is the nation, slowed in real estate? Do we see homes coming off the market? Absolutely. And you can go and find your favorite Instagram person. Hopefully it's me, just saying, but hopefully it's me, and they'll say the same thing. They're like, "Oh, homes are coming off the market, and sellers are pulling their listings and all this." I don't think it's the greatest thing to do. I think that's actually one of the worst things to do, especially during this time, because this is when people are out looking to buy your home. This is when people are saying, "Hey, this market isn't the strongest. Let's go in at a different price point, and let's go in, maybe 50 to $100,000 under what they're asking for, and just see." And a lot of times people are saying, I'm not going to go in that low, or I'm not going to accept an offer that low. Here's our counter offer, but we're also going to give you a $10,000 lender credit or seller credit that you can use for closing costs, to rate buy downs, to whatever you want to use it for. And that's a great thing, because then that allows that person to get into that property that they probably otherwise would not have been able to do. Now, talking about the market, we are slower. We're not dead. We're not crumbling. We're not crippled. We're not going to see a dramatic drop like we did in 2008. I wasn't a realtor then, but at the same time, we can go back through and we can read up on history and understand exactly what happened. We're not seeing any of that happen right now. We're seeing that this is just a slow time. We're seeing that buyers are saying, "Hey, listen, I don't need to sell right now. I would like to, but I don't need to sell." And we can see buyers doing the same thing. We don't need to buy right now. We're not finding that cream puff that we absolutely love. But at the same time, if you guys think to a couple years ago when everything was really elevated and everything was way out of price for what most people thought was a very fair and true market value of a property, we're seeing kind of the opposite. We're seeing people slowing down, saying, "Okay, let me look at this home a little bit longer, and I like this market a little bit more." And the reason I like the market more is because it's a more manageable market, not just for buyers and sellers, but also for realtors. I mean, it's not easy for us to just pump out a contract right away when you're ready for it. We got to get back to our computers and get everything ready and situated, unless we already have one prepped in our pocket that was printed out previously. So, with all of those things being said, yes, it will take some time. It's going to be a little bit more effort on everybody's part, because everyone's trying to make this deal happen or make a deal happen. So one thing that I do have to say is just don't get too frustrated and don't get too upset right now, because right now is not necessarily the worst time that we've ever seen in history whatsoever, by far, or any stretch of the imagination. So with all of that being said, and this is the last thing I really, really want to touch on, the Feds aren't necessarily guaranteeing that they're going to lower any interest rates. Nothing. They said, we need to and we should lower it two times this year, but they were going to lower it this last go around. I don't think that we're going to see two rate drops, and I don't think that we're going to see getting closer to the sixes right now. And the reason I say that is because our recessionary period, we're right on the edge of being in a recession. If this big beautiful bill goes through as rough as it says it will, then we're in for a rude awakening for a short bit of time. Now, I'm not saying that it's a terrible bill. I think that overall I'm not a big fan of it, but I think that there's some elements of the bill that actually are doing some quite good things. But overall, I do think that this bill could hurt a lot of people. And I think that the tariffs are the biggest reason why it could do such. I don't think it's necessarily some of the other items. I do really think that it's a lot to do with the tariffs, a lot to do with what is going on with the tariffs of the different countries and everything else that are being drawn into us redoing all of the tariffs that we have already established and that he's established even such in his first term. So with that, I hope that you guys have a great day. If you guys have any questions, please reach out, text, call, anything. I'd love to talk to you guys. I would love to hear from you guys. And I would really honestly like to know if you guys like these shows. So please click, follow, like, all the above, and I will be here for you guys no matter what, as I'm your advisor. Take it easy, stay safe, and if you can't, have fun. Cheers.